the most RSVP'd one yet. So
we won't know who's there unless they make a comment and let us know. And Anthony, somebody will probably announce that. So,
okay, very good.
All right, Mike, are you counting me down?
3, 2, 1. Yeah, we are live.
Yo, thanks for hanging out with us. I finally watched Beastie Boys story this past week, and I've been stuck in old school hip hop mode all week. Lucky for you, but it's the perfect week because we have a very special guest this week. But first, from Mean Joe Advertising, Mixmaster AT Anthony Taylor, Be Nice Bradley Simon, and DJ Renob Mike Bloomstein.
Woo! Tell you that one later.
We're missing a little stuff this week. Too busy to join, but excited to be here. Now, I've known this guy for a little over 20 years. He started as an intern and part-time DJ on legendary rock station WMMS, where I worked, while he was still in school at Ohio University. After graduation, he became our junior account executive at WMMS and went from looking like a 12-year-old trying to sell radio advertising packages to kiddie parks and dance clubs to being a local sales manager for Kiss FM, to becoming a general sales manager at Clear Channel, now iHeart here in Cleveland, to becoming the director of sales and then market manager for iHeart in Charlotte, North Carolina. Years ago, back to his hometown, Cleveland, as the president, Ohio North Region, iHeart Media. Nobody loves radio more than my friend, who we're really excited to have because he knows a lot about radio, media, and marketing, and because he's a lot of fun. So excited to welcome the diabolical Keith Areno, Keith Hotchkiss.
Thank you, Todd. That's awesome.
So before we get started, I just want to thank everybody who took time to submit questions. If you have any questions while you're here, drop them in the chat below and we'll answer as we see them. Also, whether you're friends or we've never met before, give us a quick sup in the chat so we know who's here and can say, hey. Now let's go around and see what everybody is drinking tonight. We'll start with the man who I thought would have Tito's soda, Keith.
Well, because I've been drinking every night in quarantine, we are out of Tito's. So we went back. We went to Bullet Bourbon, also out of the 10-year, which is really good. Nice. But this is serves as a good backup too. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Mike.
I got, this might be my favorite beer. It's taken over Dortmunder, but it is the Noble Beast Evil Motives IPA. So good. Love it. Out of the usual master's glass. You
nice.
have
to. All right, Bradley.
Going back to what I had for week 1 happy hour, Raz Wheat from Jackie O's down in Athens.
Nice.
Go Bobcats.
Nice. Go Bobcats.
And Anthony?
Have a little Weller's Green Label Special Reserve.
Ooh, nice. All right, and I'm still tapping Anthony's Cleveland whiskey from his in the Crazy Mama's rock glass. Sorry to timestamp it, but happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
There you go.
All right, so let's get rolling. Keith, first of all, Ohio North Region President, iHeart Media. Just give a little rundown of what that means, what you are, what you do.
Yeah, that means Cleveland, Akron, Canton, and Youngstown. There's about 20 stations in that group, plus our traffic and weather network, and then we're the local affiliate for the premier networks of iHeart, which is Rush and Dan Patrick and those kind of great shows. And then we're the local affiliation for the iHeartRadio app and all the programming that originates, locally on that app. So it's about 20 stations, about 150 employees, and 3 different offices around Northeast Ohio. It used to be a little different. It used to extend out to Defiance, Ohio, and iHeart likes to change things up every once in a while. So that's how we ended up here. But I will say, and I did want to go back to your intro, because when this was J-Core when I started with Todd, and I was his junior account executive.
Not really. We just made it up. We had no such thing as a junior account executive.
That's why I didn't know how. I think I tell people all the time. They're like, I think I was hired as a junior account executive. And like, that didn't exist. And I'm like, I think that's what they told me. But it was a great learning experience, and I would encourage anybody to work for Todd Burke, because you can go as far and wide as you need to go. Because look at me now.
Nice. All right, thank you. So we have some questions that we've received throughout the week for you. We're going to get into those, but first, just in the spirit of having fun. Oh, and I do want to let anybody who's watching stick around till the end. The last 10 to 15 minutes have some really good and fun questions that'll help you get to know Keith a little bit better. Little lightning round and some other fun stories that I think you'll enjoy.
If I say too much, is this? I guess everything on the internet is permanent, right? So if I say too much, just cut me off, because that's why I'm only going to drink one of these, because sometimes I get a little mouthy.
That's great. All right, so before we get to the real, advertising, marketing, comprehensive campaign type questions, just do me a favor and use the word inundated in a sentence.
Before the COVID, we were inundated with opportunities from everywhere. And now nothing. Now the fax machine is dry, Tom. The fax machine is dry.
So the inside joke for anybody out there, when Keith first started, we still had fax machines, and we still had reps, which there probably aren't very many like this anymore, who we would call order takers, who waited by the fax machine. And Keith would get frustrated. All these guys are inundated with faxes, and I'm running around calling on all these small bars. So anyway,
we had a rep that told me, like, I am just inundated with orders, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. I'm eating Taco Bell as you're inundated. Nothing wrong with Taco Bell, by the way.
You hear that, Will? Okay. So here's a question that came in from Dave Rothstein. And the question is, a lot of medium-sized companies, retail, restaurant, etc., canceling, pulling back marketing dollars and plans. Of course, money is tight, but isn't that the worst time to do that?
Yeah. This is going to be the challenge, really, of COVID, is how quickly people who are really tight on cash can return to the airwaves if they haven't been on. And we actually were on a call with some research guys that talked a lot about how the small and medium-sized companies are going to have a Goliath to slay in this, because the big box retailers are going to have the resources to pile back into advertising they probably haven't really pulled off. And the studies are showing that that's been beneficial for them, whether it's a automobile dealer. I should have just said car dealer.
Put down the bullet.
Yeah, that's right. Furniture stores, retailers that remained open, everybody that remained on air saw huge spikes in web traffic once the governor started to announce restrictions being eased. So those that remained and had a pretty healthy brand and a pretty consistent presence before and were able to remain saw huge and bigger jumps in web traffic. And that's from radio, television, any form of advertising once the restrictions have been eased. So the challenge is going to be getting back on as quickly as possible. Actually, we were on a call. I don't know how deep in the weeds we need to go with this, but we were on a call with David Joyce, who's a Congress representative from Akron, Youngstown area. And part of the goal we have is to allow small and medium-sized companies to use these stimulus funds for advertising, because advertising is an essential way to get back out there. And right now, it's only for paycheck protection and utilities and rent, which is obviously crucial. But the hope is that the next round of stimulus they'll allow for advertising dollars, because we understand paycheck is tight. And yes, they should be on. And for those that want to prove the advertising working, the tool is out there. The web measurement tools for any kind of broadcasts is there if you want, and just make sure you take advantage of that, because not everybody knows that it's out there and not everybody uses it. It's easy to use with digital, but with broadcast, you got to make sure to tie those people to that lead tracking system.
Just to answer a little further for Dave or anybody else out there, and everybody who's on with us right here who could see me knows that now I wasn't the greatest student in school because I've talked about it, but one thing I remember, and I can't remember all the details, but I remember learning about businesses during World War I. And, there was a company, and it was Sears' #1 competitor. I can't remember them, and that might be a good point to the whole story, but I probably should remember because I learned it in school. And Sears stayed on. Sears advertised, and Sears did better during that time and then emerged stronger. And they were #2, and this other company is no longer. We don't even know who they are. And so that's been kind of a trend, and you can read articles and all that. And obviously it's very difficult, if not impossible, for some businesses to have done that. And obviously we can't go back 8 weeks and do it right now, but and we talked about this even a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, when you stay on, you should do better during the time where you're on. And a number of our partners have stayed on and have done better than they could have hoped for, better than expected, without even having any idea what to expect. And I think are all going to emerge stronger because of it. But obviously, you can't just make a blanket statement that everybody should stay on, because some people it would just be impossible. And some people it might not have made sense, like in Dave's question, like restaurants. I mean, if they weren't carry out, then there was really no reason to do it, probably.
Yeah, and look, I mean, certainly if there were some of these businesses that were struggling to survive, right, and didn't want to lay off people and didn't want to, essentially run out of cash, understandably, they had to pull back on their advertising. One of the things I would say is, if that was unfortunately the case for your small or medium-sized business, it's not too late to come back, right? The good news is that I think at least in our case, and I know it's the case across the board, is that the advertising vendors, at least in the broadcast side, are definitely working with people. We've got introductory packages, we've got reopening programs that allow for pretty good frequency for not a lot of initial upfront investment. We're extending better credit terms, longer payment terms. We've got we're going to work with people to allow them to get back on pretty reasonably. And inventory is tightening, but it's certainly not like a typical May for broadcast. We expect June to be pretty busy, but right now, come back on and let's see what we can do. And see what happens.
Well, I think it's a good, the next question here, I think is a good one to follow that up with. I think a lot of people are, because they're home, or have this perception, and we've even heard this from people, that right now people are watching a lot of TV. They want to watch the news. They want to see what's going on. But here was a question that was submitted. During this pandemic, we've seen a huge increase in people consuming all types of content. How has it affected radio? And I asked that knowing the answer, because we've been really keeping up with it to make sure that it makes sense for our partners, because it's a little bit hard for anybody to imagine exactly how people are consuming radio, because they are not in their cars as much, commuting to and from work, and that's what I think a lot of people's perceptions. But I'm going to open it up to you, because I know you're going to have the good answer on that.
I'm gonna try and give you the real answer, the answer that I think is going to make sense to people, versus I think what a corporate radio guy would say, right? Because obviously listening patterns are totally disrupted, right? I mean, the listening peak used to be at 7:30 in the morning. Now it's 10:30, right? The drive times and the midday are all out of whack, right? Everything's a little bit different. And certainly in the first couple of weeks of COVID, we were having a hard time assessing what was going to happen, what the meter counts were going to look like, what docks, some of these PPM meter holders, they were docked versus being out and about, right? So It certainly did disrupt areas of listening in certain stations were affected more negatively than others. Radio as a whole maintained its audience pretty better than many people expected from both February to March and now from March to April, right? So that meant some shifts, right? You saw some decreases in top 40 and urban and hip hop. You saw some increases in NPR and news talk. You saw sports go down a little bit. You saw some of the big brands like the talk shows on WMS do really well, but then the nights fell off because we didn't have the Indians baseball there as a sticky product. So overall, different day parts and different stations were really subject to some decently wild swings. Radio as a whole held up pretty well. I think that's because even though many of us in the media business are pretty able to work from home, it's anywhere from 60 to 2/3% of people, 67%, never worked from home. They had to go to work. They're construction workers. They're day laborers. They work at Discount Drug Mart. They work at any number of places that you need to be present to work. So while 2/3 of people never actually worked from home, so yeah, the commutes were down a little bit. Things were disrupted. Certain areas where phone calls were less prevalent. But overall, listening maintained itself pretty well on the broadcast side. And actually, it kind of made up for itself on the streaming side. That's the other piece of it, is that the big brands like news talk brands and really popular shows saw a huge increase in smart speaker listening and listening on the iHeartRadio app and some of the other apps that are available out there. So we saw decreases in iHeart on listening to top 40 music and urban music, those things early on in COVID. It was more of a serious time. That's changed a little bit. It's kind of getting more back to normal the last couple of weeks. But the disruption is pretty logical. If you really want to dig into the weeds and find out what's going on with radio, what's going on with my spots, you can pretty much say, well, I think this is what would have happened. It's pretty much true. News and sports, news went up, sports went down, fun went down, now fun's raising up a little bit. So that's kind of where we're at. I hope that was I feel like I was rambling there, but radio held up pretty well, and it's coming back. That's really what I wanted to say.
Nice.
Yeah, Keith, just to kind of switch gears a little bit, you kind of talked a little bit about, there's so much emphasis on digital these days. And specifically, brands are spending thousands and thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars on influencer marketing.
Mm-hmm.
For years, radio endorsers were kind of the originators of this influencer marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in this business a while. Have you seen some examples of brands that have leveraged that influencer endorser across other models and been really successful, not just in the radio space?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm an example of probably somebody who was a little bit late to the social media space. I'm sort of on Facebook and Instagram more so as someone that wants to stay current on marketing more than I actually really enjoy the interactions and those kind of things. But I pay attention to the brands that I am served on Facebook and Instagram, and I can tell you that they are tailored towards me. They are well done. I have ordered things from there. I think I have some Hawthorne cologne from Instagram. So I have, I completely agree that, there's some really strong advantages to advertising in the digital space and seeking people out based on, the behavioral profiles that have been created. That said, I think that a lot of these brands miss the mark by not adding in localized influencers that reach a huge cross-section of people that maybe weren't scrolling or maybe weren't interested or maybe weren't put in the right algorithm, right? So, and it's one channel is never going to be a deciding factor all the time. So I think a lot of these folks realize they might put a lot of emphasis on digital and they might saturate those channels because they're successful and they provide a return on investment. But oftentimes I think, what else could you do if you added 15 local influencers around the country? Like if you had
Mm-hmm.
Alan Cox on WMS example added to Hawthorne, that might have been the thing that finally made me click that button, right? So I think that there's a nice balance. I wouldn't do any advertising without digital, but I also wouldn't do any digital advertising without some form of mass, whether it's out of home or TV or radio. And I think that's where a lot of these digital companies miss the boat sometimes, is that they are so successful and can see a return on the digital. They just like to see that positive return. They're scared to go into broadcast where it's a little bit more difficult to see that return. But when they actually do it, the overall lift is so dramatic, and it's impossible to ignore that, even though it's almost just as impossible to assign an ROI to it. So back to the influencer piece, those guys move the needle, right? We see it time and time again. Todd mentioned when I started selling radio in 1999. I tell this story a lot, but I'll tell it here because I think it's relevant with the Cleveland whiskey going down. My first client, Todd, if you remember, was the Rockin' R Ranch in Columbia Station. It was a haunted house. It was October of 1999. And this poor lady who owned the Rockin' R Ranch, I asked her for an advertising schedule on WMS, and she said, "How much is it?" And we pitched it. It was $4,000, and she said, "Okay." And she looks like she was scratching me her last $4,000 check that she had to her name, right? And she goes, "How do I know this is going to work?" And I said, "I don't know, right?" I'm just selling advertising. And literally today, though, if I went out to that same lady, I could say, we could tie you into our software and we could see web traffic happening from this schedule. So there is proof that broadcast can drive web search, and I see it happening, and I'm proud of that. So it's exciting for me to see. And the influencers oftentimes drive more traffic as a percentage than a traditional spot alone, because a lot of those they just don't have that oomph or that gut punch that you really need to get someone over the top to actually stop what they're doing and pay attention and Google something.
Nice.
Yeah, I think you covered all the points there. I mean, it's so easy from the digital perspective to look at it and turn your back on the broadcast, and then it's so easy on the broadcast to do the same. I think you kind of showed, not to toot your horn a little too much, how...
You can toot it. That's fine, Anthony.
That's all right. Are we allowed to do that? I guess it is our live streams.
Yeah, you can do whatever
we want. No, yeah, you're showing how radio's evolved, and you guys certainly have adapted a lot more technology and have a lot better offerings.
We're trying, right? I think that's the. I mean, you think about it. Like, I think that there's a rush to be futuristic, and at the same time, a crap ton of radio spots actually still makes a huge amount of difference in people if they just run it. But that's it. If they want to get real granular and get into digital and get into analyzing, which radio spots are doing better and which ones are not, they can do that too. So you can have your analytics applied to a broadcast platform, and you can have that sort of digital cake that you really like and eat it too with your broadcast, I suppose.
I just want to, bring it back to it just being a happy hour. We heard.
Oh, sorry, I got a little.
No, we heard doo-doo, toot, and crap. So, cheers to that.
I'm trying to be. Those of you that know me, I have no filter. I'm really trying hard to not be swearing. The last group town hall meeting I had at iHeart, the comment was I swore 31 times in an hour.
You can swear here. Shit, fuck.
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
It really threw me for a loop. I felt bad that someone counted my F-bombs and said you did the F-bomb 31 times in 60 minutes, and I've really been taken aback by that. So
that's the way to relate to the kids, is when you're presenting like that. You got to relate to the kids. You got to kind of do
that. Just drop the F-bomb. Left 31 times in 60 minutes. Let's just do it.
That actually brings me to a question that's not one that we submitted. It's one that I was thinking about is this is obviously we're sick of the words unprecedented and all that kind of stuff, but no one knows what to do here. You're the leader of a pretty big organization, so talk a little bit about leading during this. I mean, everything has changed, other than people still need some leadership, and it's in a real different kind of way right now.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, and that's been, I think, the thing that I'm struggling with the most, is because I have had my own ups and downs. There's days that I wake up and I'm like looking out the window thinking, man, what is going on here? Like, how are we going to get out of this? What does the future hold? And I'm very proud of the work that we're doing, the work that we can control, but most of my anxiety comes from the macroeconomic position that I'm afraid of, right? What does this really look like? It started to mitigate recently, and good news from the governor, and I think everybody sort of feels like it's summer, thank goodness. As we're going into winter, I think it would be a little more nerve-wracking for people. But I've had to kind of perk myself up and say, I think people need to hear from me, and I've tried to be as honest as possible. I've tried to be as upfront as possible. We're a publicly traded company, so they scare the bejesus out of you not to share numbers or share things. So I try not to say things that I think are going to get me in trouble, but I try and be honest with people when I say, certainly we're all impacted by this revenue-wise. And but I will say I'm a couple of things. I think that the leadership of iHeart has been really strong through all of this. And I know that a lot of the broadcast companies I've talked to have felt the same. Todd knows this. This is a pretty high performance company that if you were down 1 or 2% back in the old days, a couple of years ago, you were sweating your job. And, to see us down significant numbers and the way they were embracing us and telling us that we were all going to get through this together, the leadership from iHeart's been very strong through all this, which has been helpful to me to be strong for our team. They've heard from me a lot in the beginning. We were having almost daily calls where we were trying to reassure people that we were doing everything we could to help make sure they were going to be safe through this. At first, it started with sort of like, we're going to make sure everybody's safe. And then it sort of made sure we're going to make sure everybody's got health care. And now it's, we're going to work as hard as we can to help get ourselves out of this. So, many folks have, we've shared where we've seen salary reductions. We've shared where we've had to furlough some people. But at the same time, revenue being as off as it is, and we've not had to permanently lose anybody, I think has been a good piece of what we're doing here, and we're excited about that, and hopefully we're coming out of it. I think we've just projected optimism and data. The data has said that radio listening is strong. iHeart luckily has a pretty dynamic digital platform and a digital audio platform that people, if they don't want to talk about radio, we can talk about podcasts, we can talk about some of the digital extensions. So we do have other areas people can play around in, which is helpful sometimes if you want to go out in different areas of the pie, because not everybody wants to talk about broadcast radio. So that has been helpful too, to have a more robust product portfolio has been good, I think, and it's been easier to lead through when you've got that.
Nice. That's perfect for the next question, because maybe it'll give you a chance to talk about some of those other offerings in addition to the radio. And I know this is going to be tough because you don't want to talk too much about a particular business, and maybe you won't even mention names, and you also don't want to leave anybody out. But can you give a couple of examples of some local businesses in particular that have really used some of the assets and done some things that are don't use any of ours or any of our partners' direct competitors. I'm just joking. A couple of examples of some people who have really tried something or done something that has been a successful for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say that the one thing that we have known all along, Todd, is that the more frequency, it still seems to hold true that wins, right? the frequency quotient is undefeated. Like that number, if you run more spots, you're going to outperform your competitors. I know it just seems so elementary, but not everybody remembers that, right?
I always kind of call it like the Yankees. That's around here. I'll be like,
Yeah.
it's not an exact thing, but it's like you hate the Yankees, at least back when they used to buy their championships. Like they would just pay more money and get more players, and they would be good. And recently that's not been the case actually, but go with me on this one. It's kind of like just be the Yankees, buy more commercials, and it's sometimes hard to tell somebody because they think, oh, you're just trying to get me to spend more money, but truly, and we joke around sometimes here like, oh my God, it worked. Like we're so surprised when it's not. It's just it's just the truth.
It never seems to fail that the folks that come in and oversaturate end up eventually overtaking. So the folks that have been able to maintain a pretty strong presence, whether it's and we've had some folks that have pulled off the air because they were fearful. They didn't want to be on the radio or on TV when maybe they were laying people off, or maybe they were the messaging or the tone of their advertising was not necessarily appropriate for the first couple of weeks of COVID.
Yeah,
and then they came back on because they saw dips in ups from however they use their intake, right? They saw dip when they were off the air, and as soon as they came back, they saw tremendous spikes back up. So it was it's been interesting to see that the number of people using any kind of high frequency broadcast and using it and then staying as consistent and then coming back, they instantly saw that. They saw it dip when they came off, and they saw it spike back up. And you probably know who they are. They're some of the most ubiquitous advertisers in the market. Some of them you don't want to talk. You know their name. They're always in the consideration set. That's the thing that we our folks talk a lot about with broadcast, right? The consideration set. That you may not. You buy what 5 cars in your lifetime, and then there's 100 and you're 80 years old. So I mean, for 99% of the car advertising is completely wasted on you at all times. But when you are ready, that one time, when you are ready to buy, you are going to consider the people. You're going to find these people that who have been on the air for years. You're going to at least consider them, right? And then they're going to find a way to make it into they found a way into your subconscious, and they're going to come get you. Does that answer the question? I don't know if I answered it. I try not to use examples of people.
Yeah, no.
I didn't want. Or is there something else? Did I do something?
No. That makes
Chief.
total. I mean, it's like all those big companies. You always see the Geicos, the Progressives, the people that own the time spots. Those people. I mean, it works. You see a lot of actually startups. Most of their initial investments, a lot of it goes towards marketing because they know you need to be there.
Keith, hold on, Keith, just really quick. I'm a big fan of Howard Stern.
Yeah.
In no way, shape, or form am I comparing anything that's going on here to the Howard Stern show. Or
I would hope not.
But just because I feel like being honest about something not only is the right thing to do, but I think you'll think it's funny, is that I got an email from a sales rep in another city who has been watching.
Oh boy.
He had a question for you actually, but he also told me to be careful because people who are watching could see what Bradley and I were having like a little side chat about things. And I said something derogatory about another sales rep of ours from another market who left.
That sounds something you would do.
Well, he didn't see it because he had left already, but I just think it's funny that that's a technical issue. And
I got a little distracted because someone asked if I was wearing pants, and I will say I'm gonna prove that I am wearing pants.
There you go.
There we go.
So I had to prove that.
all right. Anyway,
This is the new thing we do, right? We wear pants
I
in
have
case
not
we're
put on
asked.
pants. March 16th was the last day I had pants on.
That's you, Todd.
I had shorts on literally the entire time.
That's your thing. Your cargo shorts and black
I wore
t-shirts.
no cargos, but I wore shorts. I don't think I wore shorts on March 16th when we came in, but I haven't worn pants.
That's awesome.
All right. Sorry for that interruption, but I thought
I just didn't want to make sure I was doing something wrong.
Appreciate it. So now, because he gave me that heads up, I am going to ask his question.
Yes.
And I'm just going to read it right away. So he said, I don't know if they have many sports stations in his region, but can you ask Keith what their sports stations are doing up there? How has their programming changed? And by the way, we can see your chat on screen, so don't call anybody out.
Yeah.
So,
don't tell anybody to fuck themselves.
So, we have sports stations in the market who are not owned by iHeart. We partner with them, and we have kind of our idea about what's going on, but we don't know a lot about programming and all that. But you guys have some sports stations, and you might even lump News Talk that has sports on it. What can you talk about that might inform?
Yeah. It's been so a couple things on that. Recently, from Cleveland's perspective, the FM sports station has been a true, which is not owned by us, it's Entercom. It's been a true success story, right? I mean, and think of which I knew it would have been in 2012 when they signed it on, and with the Browns and Baker Mayfield and all the drama around them. I mean, they've owned that lane and they've taken advantage of it, and they've done a good job, and they've kept consistent. Their personalities have been fairly consistent for a long time and built a loyal fan base. But I think all of our sports stations, whether it's Entercom or ours across the country, have been struggling for content these last couple of weeks. So as the last few years, some of the younger sports fans maybe have migrated away from our AM sports brand, WTAM, to the FM, which is only natural. Many people under 40 are not in love with the AM sound. It just doesn't resonate with them. We've seen a shift back to the News Talk, especially in this, right? So the News Talk brands have been exploding, especially early on in COVID. I mean, we were setting incredible records on WTAM, the News Talk station, for a long time when some of that content on the sports stations was declining. I think it's right-sizing itself. I think you're starting to see the comeback. But until you see live sports back on the air, ESPN and all these brands are going to be struggling for content. Doesn't mean they're struggling for listeners, but it's hard to find content, right? It's hard to, how much more can you talk about maybes? We're ready for real action.
Yeah. How many top 10 lists of who's your top 10 guys? Here's a bracket. All right, vote on this. Remember that one time in the 90s? No.
I think the good news though for Cleveland specifically is this is a sports town, and eventually we're getting back there. I kind of feel like the return to normalcy is going to help everybody, right? I'm craving a return to normalcy simply because I think that helps all of our advertising partners. So whether that's competitors of ours or whether it's just anybody in the market, talking about an Indian season, talking about the Browns, talking about going to a restaurant, getting out there, getting a haircut, all that means commerce, and that helps everybody. So I don't mind if we start getting back to normal and people start listening to sports. So just as a side note, we partnered with the Indians to air the 22-game win streak with Sports Time Ohio on WMMS and WKBN in Youngstown. I was sort of thinking that'll be fun. It'll be a nice press release. We'll sell some people in. But I took the kids to Dairy Queen the first night, and it was that warm embrace of Tom Hamilton was something that I didn't realize how much I missed. And so I think when I was on a call yesterday and I told people that there's a lot of noise out there about people, they're going to write off Disney World, they're going to write off Cedar Point, they're going to write off stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I'm telling you, people want familiarity. They want things that make them happy. They want a little bit of a familiar hug, if you will. And so those brands are going to survive. And so baseball, football, Disney World, Cedar Point, restaurants that you're familiar with, radio stations, TV shows that you remember and want to get back to, your office, all that's going to come roaring back. So there's going to be a pretty big nostalgia trip for the next couple of months of people going back to restaurants they used to go to, and wanting to get back to that sense of normalcy, and so all that matters. And just I couldn't believe how much Tom Hamilton on the radio, even listening to a 3-year-old Indians game, meant so much, just for even a half an inning, just to hear it.
I can actually like hear that, and it's like a half full crowd. You can just hear the vendors, and then just Tom Hamilton just talking to Rosenhaus,
a lazy June Indians game on a Tuesday, just hanging out, right?
Yeah,
Why not?
And
why not?
Actually, just yesterday I was watching a top 10 Tom Hamilton radio calls because I was just like, I want to watch baseball.
Craving it, right? Yeah,
craving it.
So that's the hope, and so I think everybody. I mean, the Browns' schedule is getting announced. What, tomorrow or tonight?
Tonight.
Yeah.
It's
7:30, I believe.
The draft is like the biggest sports thing we've had in 2
Huge.
months. Now tonight, this is such a big deal. Like every team is making it such a big deal. There's like specials and
there's a 3-hour ESPN special tonight.
But, Keith, I'm with you. I listened a little bit to Hammy the other night, and I had chills. And I actually, when you just said it, I had chills. Like that's how much like we need this kind of.
We need it, and that's what the Indians are. Economically, they don't want to play without fans, but I think everybody just needs this. Like that's what they. I think when the governor announced today that restaurants were opening next week, I think everybody just got a little bit of like, wow, I can't wait. Now, granted, I'm not. Some people are a little frightened. If that's your thing, that's fine. I'm not suggesting you do what you do, but I think people are looking. It's been 2 months since this all started. I think people are understanding that there's some risk out there, but are ready to get back to. I mean, look, 2 months being at your house with your kids and Netflix is not the worst thing on earth, but I think people are ready to get out and kind of go to a restaurant and have some tacos and live a little bit more like how we used to live, right?
I'll tell you, I've been on the phone with a couple people today, a couple of our partners who, have told me about what it's like out there. It's funny how, just to give you a little, a little perspective. Like I've been home, I've been in the office, which I'm by myself. There's a few people in the building here. I've been to a drive-through for a prescription. I did pick up some food last night that was not curbside. I had to go into a place. I picked up a honey baked ham the day before Easter. That's the only other time I've been in a building that wasn't my house or the office, and that's in 8 weeks. And so I don't really know what's going on. I feel very insulated. I don't know what's going on out there. We've driven around. We've done a couple of like birthday parades where you honk and wave. And so it's funny that when they start telling you like, oh my God, people are out. Or when we have a video call with one of our partners and we're going over their traffic numbers, their sales numbers, and they're up, or they're not down as much as they're supposed to be, or you would think they are. And it's like, wow, people are actually out there doing things. So the fact that there are that many who are out, like just today, people were like, oh man, people are out and about. So yeah, I think there's going to be a good high percentage of people who are dying to get out. They just need somebody to give them the okay, the real okay, not like the social media person telling them that it's okay, like a real okay.
Fine.
And this is the next big question here is like, when you think about it, you've got, like, I think I mentioned, we're sort of a divided family. I'm like I go to the grocery store. I'm like, whatever, everything that I've seen, it doesn't make me nervous. I'm very fortunate. I don't have pre-existing health conditions. My wife hasn't left the house in 8 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, so she's terrified. Like, this is not for her. And so, we're seeing that dynamic play out. I was at a car dealership yesterday getting service, and I talked to the GM. They were actually up in April, and he said, there's 25% of the population that doesn't want to leave the house. The other problem, though, is the 25% of the population that doesn't give an F, and they're just like, "Hey, Bill," and high five, and you're like, "Okay, maybe you're part of the problem too." Like, maybe just be normal and respect other people's fears, and we'll all get through this. That's kind of the next piece of it. I was surprised, but I do think we need to be. I think that the governor and the Cleveland Clinic, they're all kind of on the same page now that the virus is still out there. But if we kind of all wash our hands enough and practice social distancing, we'll be able, if you get sick, you'll be able to be taken care of at the hospital. I think that's where everybody is. That's kind of where it's at.
I thought they did such a good job. I mean, the clinic, unbelievable job. And the governor, too, just being able to, suppress that first bump, and just have the tests available for everybody so that, we didn't rush the hospitals, but now, all right, let's open it up a little because we have capacity. And,
that's right.
If the idiots that want to lick their hands and high five people get it, we can take care of them.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's also, I think I tell my wife is that the hard part is that, the internet is a weird place, right? An article that says you're gonna die is going to get 10 times more clicks on an article than an article that says you're going to live, right? So this fear porn is getting much more, is good for business for some of these media outlets, right? So the Atlantic and some of these other outlets are churning out all this "you still could die" clickbait, and I'm not saying either way. I know I'm online here. I'm going to get chastised, but I'm just saying, I think you have to be. I think you have to be careful what you're reading, and understand that there's risks, but there's also there's decisions you can make. So as long as you're careful and respectful of others, I think that's the way.
Yeah,
that's how I wore a mask to Heinen's, but I went to Heinen's.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's how it was. I didn't like wearing a mask, but I wore it.
Oh, man. All right. So good stuff. I feel like normally we would just keep going with questions, but I think that the questions that I have in front of me right now, Keith, are going to be way more interesting and way more entertaining for a lot of people who are out there than just tell me about radio advertising. So let's get into it. Ready?
All right. Well, do you get to answer some of these too? Or,
I'll probably help you out a little bit with the fact.
All right. Okay.
All right. So you're this big muckety muck at iHeart, and
it's a muckety muck. That's
president and your title and everything. But tell everybody about, just real quickly, what was your first job?
You mean at radio or at Mapleside
your very
Farm?
first job.
Yeah, it was at Maples. I think it was Mapleside Farms. Yeah, I was at Mark's, and then Mapleside Farms. So I had Mapleside Farms, and then Mark's. Okay. And I started at Mapleside. It was the ice cream parlor and the apple orchard. Making apple cider, and then I worked at Mark's in Strongsville. Crushed it. Was the stock supervisor immediately because they saw that I was so, good at putting paper towels from a box onto the shelf.
Yeah.
Here's what I want, Keith. I want people to learn how they might be able to market their business better, and I want some people to know that, hey, maybe you could be the president, Ohio North region someday.
Maybe.
Stocking shelves, yeah.
Yeah, I was a shelf stocker. I started off, and then in college, I was a DJ at the college radio station at OU, ACRN.
Listen, I only asked about your first job. We're going to run out of time.
Right? There you go.
All right. What's the craziest thing you've ever done for a meeting at work where you were going to present to the team? You might need to go back, or it could be something recent.
Here's the funny thing. It's not my style to come in with something like crazy to start. I think I just let my mouth just run, and probably every meeting people are like, Oh boy, they start. It goes fine at the beginning, and then they start cutting me off. Maybe the craziest thing I've ever done was like 6 months ago when I did 31 f-bombs. It's 60 minutes, apparently. So
I think the answer we were looking for was about when you announced about something about Kiss FM. You dressed up.
Oh, as Gene Simmons? That's George Allen. That's all him. He forced me to do it. He convinced me that it would be a great idea. So you've never seen a less enthusiastic response. So
Great.
George had this idea that Kiss FM was a not so popular little radio station versus all the big boy radio stations. So the way to get attention was for me to dress up like Gene Simmons. And I did, and I walked into a meeting and I did this, wah! And I mean, nobody laughed. Nobody said anything.
Anyway,
it was
thank you
silent.
For being here, everybody.
It was rather awkward, and I was in a Gene Simmons wig and maybe a leather jacket. I'm not sure. I was not in any fishnet stock or leather pants for sure. I can tell you that I was just reminiscing the other day, Todd, about when Sophie had to suspend me. Sophie Fry was our sales manager. She works at Futuri Media now. She had to suspend me. Speaking of Howard Stern, because when I was the sales manager at Kiss FM, I was also a DJ, and I was the MC of a Halloween party, I think. And
it's one of the questions, by the way. You're jumping way ahead, but go.
I got really hammered, and I got on the microphone and I said a lot of profane things on the microphone. I can't say it. It was a Howard Stern thing. I can't say it. Young, wet, biatches. I can't say it.
At a bar appearance, I love it.
I was very young. I was too young to be the sales manager and a DJ, and they were feeding me Jaeger bombs. And look, I guess that goes to show you we all make mistakes.
Yeah, you could still become the president.
Yeah, well, for now.
Of the United States and of iHeart region.
Yes, for now. I mean, until this gets on Bob Pittman's desk.
All right, so some of these questions I think will be fun and interesting for some people, and some are just for me, and I don't care. Have you ever been confused for the great Bob Hotchkiss of iHeart Youngstown?
I have been.
And please tell the funniest time you were confused as Bob Hotchkiss.
Well, I don't know.
You know what I mean.
Well, there was 2 times, but the first one was when when I first started in 1999, he had been there in Youngstown for a long time. We are not related, but my first day, or my first 2 weeks, I received his paycheck and he received mine, and his was substantially higher.
He was like the market manager of Youngstown, and you were like first 2 weeks rookie on a guarantee.
Yes, I mean, we're talking about a difference of tens of thousands of dollars. And I obviously knew right away that this was a mistake. So I let whoever know, and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And so that was in my account for like 10 hours. Yeah. But Bob didn't even notice. He thought it was his expense reimbursement with my actual paycheck. So.
Oh my gosh.
And actually, Bob then... 3 years later, Bob reported to me and just retired. The legendary Bob Hotchkiss. So
that's great.
I do love Bob.
You, how many dogs do you currently have?
Well, unfortunately, we have one now. The pandemic. I don't know if this is a great funny story, but
no, probably not.
Sounds hilarious. Let's go.
Checking before asking.
In the pandemic, the same day, no, I don't want to say it. A dog passed away in a bad time of the pandemic. It was a rough day.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry.
I was happy. The dog was peeing all over my carpet. I was
What you should get from this is that they adopt senior beagles and take care of them, and have been for many years, right?
There's one left. I mean, he looks dead. But he's actually He's just 14 years old, just sleeping over there like he always does in my room. Fred the dog. He's great.
All right, I'm gonna bring the energy back up. Talk a little bit about. I think people will love to know about your Valentine's Day tradition.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Actually, we were just thinking about that a couple weeks ago because this year. Yeah, now I'm drawing a blank. I can't even remember what we went to Costco. Yes. So we go to unusual places for Valentine's Day. White Castle was one before they closed. My wife and I. We've done Burger King. We've done Hooters. I took my daughter and my wife to Hooters in Charlotte on Valentine's Day. It's great. We've done the Old Country Buffet, which maybe wasn't as that was a little more because actually people actually do take their spouses to Old Country Buffet on Valentine's Day, unironically. So I sort of felt a little bad about that one, but we've done that. We did the Taco Bell Long John Silver's over on. That's
a combo. That's a
yeah,
combo.
It was.
Half Taco Bell, half Long John.
You've never seen anything like it.
That's amazing.
It was. And my wife ate the Long John Silver's, and I ate the Taco Bell, and it was quite the evening. So we've done Red Lobster, just unusual places for us, like places that we wouldn't like. We didn't.
I think ironic was the right word.
Like, ironic, unusual.
You'd have to know you to know exactly why it's ironic, but it's ironic.
Yeah, we've done Sheets. The whole thing. So
nice.
My wife loves it. She actually her dream is to do medieval times, to go to Myrtle Beach and go to medieval times.
Yes.
She wants to have me in that stupid paper hat like nobody's business.
And a big turkey leg.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Gnawing it down.
All right, Keith, have you ever been in a fight?
Not really. I mean, one time. Yes, I was attacked at the Rock Hall. It was at an Our Lady Peace concert. Todd Burke saved my life. Yes.
What?
How can I forget this?
We don't need to get into the particulars of the fight. Let's just say that you got in a fight.
Yes. Well, no, we can get into particulars. It was a jealous ex-girlfriend. She was extreme. No. Well, actually, it was the current girlfriend of the boyfriend who I had wronged, apparently. You can say hi. And that's Amelia.
Hey,
she's turning 7. Amelia, can you say hi to everybody? What's wrong?
Hi, Amelia.
I'll be there in a second. The TV has YouTube. Don't worry. It'll be fine.
You can watch your dad on Mean Joe Advertising. Don't
don't worry.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
So, so then
I
at
said
the Rock
don't
Hall,
get into particulars, and you're getting into particulars. You can if you really want to, but I don't.
Well, I was attacked, and I was very.
He was attacked. There was no doubt he was attacked.
I didn't know what to do, and Todd had to defuse the situation, and I thank God he did, because I have never been in a fight. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover.
We had many beers of whoever was sponsoring the pre-party, and it was a really cool Rock Hall show, and Our Lady Peace was great, and this guy was ruining it. So
Our Lady Peace, hell yeah.
Yeah. Todd took care of business though, and saved.
If you're watching,
he saved the evening for sure.
All right, listen. Tell us, just if you don't know off the top of your head, just give an estimate. Biggest bar tab you ever ran up at Dive Bar?
Well, I believe that. I don't know an individual night, but I do know at 1 month, April of some year at Blind Pig, it was over $3,000, and it was almost all cherry bombs.
Anthony, really quick, how many people are? If it's too low, just inflate it. How many people are still watching right now?
So we've got 12 right now.
Okay.
But there's one in particular. Bob Joyce wants to know, Keith, what time? When's your next Scorchers appearance planned for? So that we can all attend.
At Miles Road, yeah, we'll go down to Miles Road. Actually, no, the one in the Valley, Scorchers in the Valley. We'll be there. We'll drink some Labatt's. It'll be a great time.
Great.
Yeah, yeah, the Blind Pig, April of some year. I counted my bar tab. It was $3,000. I told John Owen that one time, and I think he might have given me some free mozzarella sticks in exchange.
Trust me, he knows. They knew who did what. All right, couple quick ones. Favorite TV show?
Oh, it's got to be Seinfeld. There's just no way. In fact, I don't even have a. I've stuck in time, Todd. People keep asking me, "Do you watch Ozark? Do you watch?" I'm like, no, I still watch Seinfeld. I'm that guy.
Like Ozark though. I feel like Jason Bateman is like you.
Probably. I just can't get. I just haven't watched it. I'm sort of like stuck in the Seinfeld, going to bed at 8:35. You know, probably because I'm drinking too much. You know?
Favorite musical act?
Of all time, it's U2, but live, it's a tie between U2 and Stone Temple Pilots.
Ooh,
yeah.
Wow.
I was asking, but I knew what you
really
were
good. That's awesome.
Todd and I were at the WMMS summer show with Stone Temple Pilots. Nautica 2000. Slats came on stage and introduced STP, the buzzer, and they killed it. They put on a show, man.
That's something you'll never see again with some replacement singer, no doubt.
No,
awesome.
They were great. They were always so good live, and doing that thing. So, how about you, T? What's your favorite live?
God, it's such a good question. I don't know, but I should tell you that Anthony and I were in Vegas for the NADA. And although it's probably not my favorite live thing ever, but just in my whole hip hop thing that I'm in right now, old school, we saw Tone Loc.
Yes.
And DJ Rob Bass.
Yeah.
A video of the whole thing, except it's bouncing like this because I was bouncing like this the whole time.
Well, and some of the people who were on this call, I don't know who they are, but maybe they were at Todd's, was it your 40th birthday?
40th dive bar.
At the dive bar and Anthony and Bradley, you were probably like 10. And Mike, maybe you were like 15.
I like that you kept me up a little. That was great.
You just look a little older, if we're being honest.
Appreciate that.
So Todd was dancing to Jump Around, and the whole dive bar was shaking. And I said, I don't know how something in the basement can shake. Like, shouldn't this be like solid? I don't even
Greatest
understand.
party song of all time. Just let's put it out there.
The whole dive bar. I thought the building was collapsing on all of us that evening. Like, I was standing sort of close in case the world ended that night.
Nice.
So that was a great 40th birthday for sure.
Nice. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more. So you told us a story about how you got in trouble on air for saying something on air. How about an appearance? Ever get in trouble with an appearance?
Well, that was the appearance. Not on air, but I know where you're going with the appearance story.
Six Flags?
Yeah, I just reminisced about this recently.
Okay.
With someone, because we're talking about Cedar Point reopening soon, and some of the people who work at Cedar Point still used to work at Six Flags Yaga Lake crew. It was a Skittles situation. One Direction was late. They sang that. Soul Decision. I said what?
I was like One
Direction. I was like One Direction.
No, Soul Decision.
Right.
They all kind of run together.
Yeah.
Soul Decision was late, and I had to stall for time. And so we were doing one of those things. We had to stall for like a half hour. So like, hey, who's here from Brunswick? And then two people cheer. And then you're like just naming suburbs, right? And people kept throwing the promotional Skittles at me, and I was getting annoyed. And one hit me in the face, so I said the swear word. Said, stop throwing the effing Skittles. And apparently that was taboo at Six Flags, a family-friendly amusement park. Now, at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but apparently they lost their minds. Like, one person wrote a complaint letter. one season ticket holder, and I had to send this apology and go down there and do all this nonsense. I mean, no offense, Six Flags, that was nonsense that I had to do an apology letter for one season ticket holder.
So you could still
who, by the way, threw Skittles at my face.
President of the North Ohio region.
Yes. By the way, I apologize again.
Now, not to. I'm going to interrupt here on Todd just because we're getting some good questions in here, and I've heard Todd's side of the story here. And Keith, I hope you were there for this. What would Todd have almost gotten arrested for on his 40th birthday? That it's a good thing we got him in the cab.
My guess is that Keith was gone. I don't know who's asking that question. It could only be one of like 4 or 5 people. But
yeah, I'm sure I was gone. I mean, I'm not a late night guy. I'm early pass out guy. So I probably didn't make it very late. People put me in cabs and I end up in people's couches, and then I wake up and then we have to go do the scavenger hunt the next morning where I leave my credit card in one bar and my keys somewhere else, and because I'm early pass out guy.
Do we know who that question is from, by the way?
It's Bob Joyce with another one.
Dude, Bob just got him.
Yeah, he's firing off.
I feel like it reflects very poorly on me if there were ever anyone to watch this. But it involved doing something that you shouldn't do to a respected officer of the law.
Well, you mean like I did almost get arrested at OU as you're pouring the Jackie O's beer because
Yep.
But it wasn't really bad. There was a cop on a horse, and I slapped the horse's butt, and the cop didn't like it.
You gotta ask before.
Well, I say, hey, can I pet your horse? And they're like, what's the? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, what's the horse's name? And they were like, I don't know, Seabass or something. And I'm like, well, Seabass. And I slapped this horse, and it did not like it, and the cop was not happy. He jumps off this horse and grabs me by the neck and throws me down onto Court Street. And
stop resisting.
I'm like,
probably the easiest way to get arrested.
I'm like, I'm so sorry. I just really like horses. I'm sorry.
It was asking for it.
Do we have any other good questions, Anthony?
That's all we've got in the queue right now.
Keith.
Well, I feel like, Todd, I hope people learn things. As you know, like I said, I've drank a couple of bourbons. I hope this was actually helpful, for some people.
I think for sure the first about 40 minutes, or the past like 28 are just entertaining for those friends.
For you and me.
I would name some friends who are here. I don't know if they want to be named, so I won't. But we have some friends who are watching who are texting me. Maybe you too. Thank you so much for joining us. But this has been fun, memory lane, the whole thing. But I think there was some really, good information, and our goal for this is to always provide something that's maybe good information or educational, a little entertaining, and it's been awesome. And to have friends on who can provide that from a very high level is awesome.
Well, and look, this has been an honor. I appreciate your partnership, and look, we're here to. I'm happy to offer marketing advice to anybody. I'm a sales guy, yes, but at the end of the day, if we can help people, eventually that all comes around to you. So maybe it's something. Hopefully, if you need something, we're happy to help on some way. This is weird. We're in a weird time, and we're doing things we never did. So if someone has a question or needs some help, you can reach out, and we'll try and point you in the right direction. Thank you for everything.
I like using weird instead of unprecedented. That's
Yeah,
like
weird
that
is so
next
good.
step. I like
Strange.
that.
Well, we were
thought,
just actually, I broke my rule. I'm not supposed to talk about how we're in these unprecedented times.
No, weird was great. I was like, yeah.
Weird is perfect.
They're pretty
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
weird.
I thought somebody was like playing you off like at an award show, but now I realize it's one of your kids are watching something on a device.
I like
She
it.
won't it's teen time. Turn it down. I asked you. to turn
It's
it down.
okay. It's okay. But I was really hoping for maybe ending with you singing one of your coronavirus parody songs.
Oh God, no. I have to reserve those for my children and my wife. I can't be seen as taking it not as seriously as it deserves.
All right.
Yeah.
I think on the internet where it will live forever. You might be.
Yeah,
we need clickbait. We need more people watching this. So
I don't make the right decision on the internet often, but I'm going to make it this time. In this case, hopefully, like I said, this stuff does live forever. That's part of the reason why I don't go on Rover, because you get caught in these situations and you say something and it lives forever. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to be somewhat cognizant of that. But
nice.
It's been great to talk to you guys, and hopefully, if anybody learned something, I hope that's great. And hopefully, we'll have a chance to help some people out of this. Right? This
don't call Keith directly if you need anything. Call one of the reps. He's much too busy and too important for you. But
actually, go straight to an advertising agency like me and Joe, who is unbiased in their opinions. Don't go right to the vendor directly also.
You're going to be in more trouble for that your company than you are for singing a parody.
No, we're great. We love ad agencies. We're all good. We're all together. We're all in this together, Todd.
All right, Keith. We always end these things with you got to finish your drink, whatever you have left. So cheers. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
That was great to talk to you guys. Hope you have a great evening. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, you too. Keith. Appreciate it.
I said hi.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We still